Merry Christmas. Come down on Christmas afternoon, just doing nothing. So came down to do a bit more on this. Just a quick update on how I'm doing the ITBs and like the sensors and my dodgy shit. Okay, so got all the stacks on. Need to just tighten them down, but they're just in place on the backing plate. So the original, like the way the previous person that did all this wiring did the air temp sensor, so they had like the original, I think I did it show in the last clip, but original one that was going down into the 20 valve like air box, the silver top. So I've put one of these ones in, fucking assuming they're compatible, assuming it sends the same type of signal. They're like a year apart and the wire colors are the same, so I'm hoping it's just a form change really. So yeah, drilled a hole, just put it through a bung, extended the wiring down to like the original wiring, just loops around. It's probably a bit long, but better than being too short. Would have liked to just send it straight up, but then it kind of hits the throttle linkage. So that's the way we've done it. Sorry, don't really know if I explain what I've done with this hose. So when I bought this car, when it was running in the, well, when I bought this engine, it was running in the other car, and we put the stacks on the first time. I'd originally blocked this port, thinking that the idle speed control valve would control the idle. But starting it up, it would always stall and choke out. And so we had a better look at what things were doing, and they were running this port straight into the airbox. So it was just built-in vacuum leak to get air in for idle. It was idling really high with that port, like it was idling at like, I don't know, like 1700 RPM. So along the same vein, I've put it into a smaller port on a much smaller vacuum. Potentially won't have enough air, but we'll see. I'll just give it a whack, and we can always make the port bigger or like change the reducer or something like that. I know it's not perfect because it's sending unmetered air through, but really, I don't actually know if it makes a difference, because if that's a vacuum leak, that'll get picked up by the map sensor in the ECU, I think. Percent sure of this shit, like I don't really know what I'm doing, but I'm just thinking like if it's idle air is coming from vacuum, it's gonna drop the vacuum signal to the ECU, so the ECU should know it's got air. It'll see TPS shut, but like that shouldn't be a problem. I don't know, fuck knows, I have no idea how this thing's gonna run, but yeah, good. I'm gonna chuck the pipe across on it now and just tighten it up, and yeah, one less thing to do. Cheers. So there we go. Pipe across is on. It's pretty tight, as you can see. There's not much room at the back here. The strut bar is gonna like kind of touch on it a bit, which isn't ideal, but that's fine, I think. But yeah, it's all on. This isn't good. I mean, this boot, like the boot for the TPS was already split, but a little bit worried. I mean, old electronics with the bend on that, but like as you can see, there's like no clearance to actually have that plug straight on, because it just hits the backing plate of the filter. But it's on. Sucks you can't really get a good angle of seeing it, but it's there. You have to kind of whack it to get the bottom tabs to kind of slide in. I wanted to wing nut, like have like wing nuts on each one so I could take it off easily when I need to, but like there was just no room to have that on this one. Like I had to cut the bolt shorter to even like get it to not just like completely fucking hit those wires, but looks good, I reckon. Getting there. Pretty much just gotta do the radiator and stuff. Yeah. Merry Christmas. I've run the map line to the ECU, so it was using this port on the throttle, on the vacuum block kind of thing these things have. So I've got vacuum line go around here, and I've decided, like, so it used to just run, like, I think they were running it through like the throttle cable bung or something like that, and they just didn't have the bungs in, they just ran it through there. So I thought of a different way of doing it, which I think is a little bit neater. So I've got it wrapping up around here, coming down here, and then going through that bung on the passenger side. So I think it's just, they must just use the same like chassis for left-hand, right-hand drive. And so obviously on right-hand drive, this on the other side has all of the chassis loom coming through to the engine bay. So it's just a blank bung on this side. So I just poked a hole in it and sent the map line down to the ECU. Other thing, this car had this weird, I don't know what this is. So it has this offshoot of like the ignition wiring kind of stuff here. And it comes to this like weird block that has like a resistor, like a big old fat resistor in it. And then that wire has one wire that comes off of it, and that goes to the ECU. It used to just run similarly as the map line, just like through the throttle. I didn't like that, I thought it was pretty messy. So I have taken that through this on this side, so I've just got it poked through the firewall there. A little bit worried about how I poked that through. I just had like a piece of wire and poked it through and then pulled it. But as I was poking it, it just kind of like, the wire was like rigid wire, kind of just like slipped into the chassis loom. I think it just went through tape. I don't think it damaged any wires, but I guess we'll see when I go to turn it on. But yeah, so that's all plugged in to the ECU there. What else? I think that's pretty much it for today. Ignore the bad wire job on the TPS plug. Don't have any black wire at the moment, so I'll get black tape and tape that up. Yeah, it's pretty much still just sort the radiator. And then the exhaust. So got a couple of choices with exhaust. So these are the original silver top headers. They were in the car originally, and so I've got a full exhaust back to work with those headers. But I did buy these ages ago, these like 4-into-1s. So they look pretty trick. And I kind of want to run them, but I don't have anything to connect them to, so I'll have to like make a bit of a custom like secondary to connect that part to the cat, and then put a couple of sensors in. So I need to relocate like the original like O2 sensor, because this thing's running on the original narrowband, but I've bought a wideband for it just so I can see what the fuel levels are like with more accuracy while I'm driving it, seeing as I have no idea what the tune's like. So I'm going to put a wideband after that. And yeah, getting there. It's really only radiator in, bolt the secondaries on just to have something going down, but then we'll probably try to fire it without the full exhaust connected just to see if it fucking runs. So yeah, getting close. Next couple of days, I reckon. Sweet. So update 2. Got the fuel working, so we got fuel, but then now we don't have spark. So been trying to diagnose why that is. First step was looking at this coil, so it's not getting any ignition signal from the ECU. And so don't know why that is. Was checking whether the distributor is sending the correct crank signal. I don't know if that's working either. Like the ECU is so old, like I haven't tried to connect to it with a computer yet. So kind of at a loss and ripping my hair out. The next plan is to kind of just take a step away. I'm gonna go home. I'm gonna like decipher this patch loom from like the original like twin cam loom plugs to this patch loom, understand where they're going in the ECU, understanding what does what, continuity check all of them. I'll try to get the software for the ECU on my laptop I have a cable for it, but I've heard they're really finicky of like connecting to modern computers because they're meant for like computers running Windows XP. So there's a bunch of like port shit you got to do. But yeah, it's getting frustrating because I'm looking down the barrel of that ECU just having broken while it's been out of the car or something. So yeah, if the ECU is broken, then I guess it's forcing my hand and I'm getting like a Haltech. But I don't really want to spend, I don't know, like 2 Gs to get a fucking Haltech. I just want to kind of get the car running and then like battle with that shit later. But I don't know, like just kind of at a loss at the moment and hoping that I can go away and have a fucking breakthrough or get the computer connected to the ECU and then be able to actually troubleshoot with the software as well and actually know what's wrong, because at the moment I don't know if the issue is that the ECU isn't getting signal of when to fire from the dizzy, or if it's just not sending signal to the coil, because it could be either of those things, because if it doesn't know where it is, it's not going to fucking spark. So if I can figure out what the actual fault is, then I can try to troubleshoot it. We like pulled back all this wiring to the dizzy to check continuity. So the continuity is all good. There's some weird shit going on with resistors. Resistors in like line of these 2 pins. Trying to do a bit of understanding on what these are for. Like I've read like Haltech's got some good stuff on these dizzies. Haltech deletes the green wire completely from the signal. So this one's kept it, and they both have like 1 ohm, 1 kilo ohm resistors on them. So got to figure out why it's resisted. I'm thinking it's a mega squirt thing. Like maybe it doesn't like maybe this sends 12 volts and maybe mega squirt wants 5 volts for the signal or something like that. So I'm gonna pull it back. Like I'm assuming there's nothing wrong with these resistors, because like this engine and this wiring and that ECU did fire and it all ran when it was in the other car. It's just something now that's changed. So it could be as simple as a fucking ground or something stupid. But yeah, I don't know. We're chasing. Yep. Alright, so it's the next day. Things didn't go all bad yesterday. I don't think I filmed anything after that clip of me being like, oh, I think the ECU is broken, I'm calling it a day. So after like 2 minutes after filming that, I thought I should probably check the sensor ground loop. I just had a bad feeling that I had missed a ground. And yeah, so we checked continuity at the ECU plugs to see just like if the sensor ground loop actually had any connection to chassis ground, and it didn't. And as soon as we kind of like hot wired one in, so like we then realized that, okay, we've missed it somewhere. I thought maybe it's behind the dash, and we couldn't find. We ended up just hot wiring one in. I don't know if you can see it there. You can't really. Shitty camera in darkness, but so I couldn't fit in the car, so we just like spliced one in at the ECU end. I don't know if that's bad practice, probably is, but the car ran. As soon as we did that, car ran, and we were like, fuck yep, sick, fired up, no worries. I'll insert a clip. Sounds like a tractor because it's got open headers at the moment, but it fucking runs. Everything's good. That's sick. So going back through photos, like I was like, where the fuck is this ground meant to be? And I was doing some research, and on the old looms, it's meant to go to the intake manifold. So I was like, oh, surely it's around that area. We like looked up around there, but we couldn't see like a strap that hadn't been done. And then I went through old photos on like my Instagram stories that I posted, and I had one where I had like the loom kind of like hanging over, just kind of like hanging out the side here, and I could see the fucking ground strap. So the way in my loom, like you've got this like whole plastic like section down here where all the wiring goes under the intake, and I could see it hanging there, and sure enough, it comes out just here. it was like hidden behind the starter motor, so we couldn't fucking see it. But sure enough, I came back today, had a feel around, found it, stretched it out to this lug on the gearbox here. Bang, grounded. We're back in. Yeah, I'll insert a clip of it running. But yeah, that's the biggest bit's done. It's in the car, it turns on. Sick. So now it's pretty much get the exhaust in, get the drive shafts in, and bleed the coolant system. Yeah, like we've been doing some like fuck around. This is the end job of the radiator in. Obviously, radiator is not meant for this car. Radiator is meant for this engine though. But I'm guessing in the cars they're meant to go in. This is still dropped lower, like this neck, and it's like further apart. So the hoses I've got, it's like a silicone hose kit for like an AE111. So they didn't fit. They were super kinked. So what we've done is we've just like cut them, put a piece of pipe in it, and then clamped it together. These clamps suck and they're leaking, so I've got some new clamps to redo it with. And then did the same thing on the top pipe, so got all those in. Had to pull them all out again. Like we did have coolant in it and everything, but we pulled it out because I'm pretty sure this switch is broken, so I put a different switch in it for the fans, because the fans were just turning on as soon as I started the car every time. Like, yeah, so I'm pretty sure that fan switch was fucked. It's over here. You can see all the corrosion on it. Yeah, so looks pretty fucked. So I put one from a AE93 in it. I'm assuming it's going to be the same shit and it's going to work. If that still plays up, I'll pull the one out of that gearbox and that thermostat and see that. So had a bit of a fuck around with the clutch slave as well. So when we were pulling it apart and getting the box ready to put in, we looked at this clutch slave and the boot and the push rod. Like the boot was like fucked. It was just like disintegrated. So we're like, doesn't look good. So we looked at what the slave was like on the gearbox that came with this motor. So this isn't the gearbox that came with this motor. This is a gearbox out of the parts seeker, which I've been told is good. No idea, but I'm hoping. But we looked at the clutch slave off that, and it looked good. And so we chucked it in. The boot was all good and everything like that. Like that is the boot from that clutch slave. So we put the whole clutch slave on and we tried to bleed the clutch and it just fucking wouldn't bleed. Like there was just no fluid coming through. So we were about to pull the master off yesterday. But Dad was just like, oh, let me just double check something. And he checked it and it was flowing at the master. It was flowing at that joint. And so we're like, okay, there's a blockage either in the hard line to the slave or the slave itself. So we pulled the slave off. Sure enough, the slave was like fucking rusted shut. So put this slave back on and now the clutch line is all bled up. But yeah, so that's why we've took the hoses off, was to do the clutch. We'll do the clutch slave. So that's all good. Pretty much just hoses need to go back on, put the coolant back in it, bleed the coolant properly and check for leaks anywhere else, like checking on these heater hoses and stuff like that. Make sure there's no leaks throughout the system there. Got a bit of a leak happening here at the fuel filter. So I've got some new washers to put on there. That looks good. The fuel fitting here, no leaks as far as I'm aware yet, so that's good. But yeah, so exhaust needs to go up. So I'm running the standard 20 valve silver top headers. Thought about running these big 4x1s, but I don't know, it was just gonna be a bit more effort to get it done in time. Like would need to make a custom secondary and then a whole bunch of shit. And you can only put these in when the radiator isn't on the car, because it's like the angle, like you have to slip it through the front section to get it in. So it was a whole lot of pain, so I just didn't bother. But we've just been fucking around with the exhaust so far. So this is the exhaust that came out of that 20 valve engine car. When we originally pulled it apart, we just cut this because this was all welded one piece. There was no flanges, so we've just added the flanges so that it's easier to take apart in the future, because I'm probably going to replace this muffler. It's just a bit rusty and shitty. I'll probably get a stainless thing on there so it looks nice. But this is the exhaust. It's just like I think it's mostly stock, maybe like a resonator added in. Don't know if that cat actually has internals or not, or if they've punched it out, but it's the one we're using. And then stock 20 valve secondaries. And yeah, so that's the narrowband O2 sensor that it's all running off at the moment. I am putting a wideband in it. So I've got like just a pretty typical AEM wideband. So I'm gonna put this in. I'm not gonna like set this up with the ECU because that might be a bit of a fuck around for like a 20-year-old ECU. I don't know how well I'm gonna be able to connect to it or change settings. So really this is just for personal monitoring to see how rich or lean it is, because no idea on the tune. So we'll get that, we'll weld that bung in for that sensor like alongside the narrowband. And then I'm probably just gonna like run all the wiring for the wideband gauge, like how I've done the map sensor. So bring it up or bring it along maybe like the steering rack, and then like come up through here and then through this bung and just push down there. Like there's so much wiring in that AEM kit, like the length isn't an issue. But yeah, so I've got to run the booster line, tighten that ground strap, put the strut brace back on and get the exhaust up in it, and yeah, we're pretty much fucking good. And it's really just put it back together at this point. They've just announced All Japan Day in Adelaide for the 24th of February. So the goal is to get this done and running on the ground, rolling like in the next, I don't know, month. And that should have me done by the start of Feb. Get it wheel aligned, maybe get the exhaust done if I can, and get it in All Jap Day and show it off. I want to do something about this ignition lead because it looks like shit. So it's because they're using the original coil. 20 valves are meant to have the coil over here and have a short run. But like this has been wired to use the original AE82 coil. So I'm thinking of custom making an ignition lead, running it inside under the cover there, and then like coming down out here, coming down out along the VVTi solenoid, and then wrapping up so you only see to there. I think that'll look a lot neater. Just need to learn how to custom make an ignition lead or find someone to do it for me. But yeah, update. It's all going smoothly, it runs, let's go. Just realized this clip is like 9 minutes long, so when this video eventually goes out, it's probably gonna be an hour and a half or something like that of just 1 year of updates on this car. So hope you enjoy a movie.